There is a guy in your neighborhood who owns 4 rental properties, drives a truck he did not technically pay for, and somehow went on vacation last month. You, meanwhile, are doing everything right, paying off your credit card early, sleeping peacefully, feeling financially responsible, and quietly falling behind. That guy is not smarter than you. He is not luckier than you. He just learned one thing you were never taught. And that one thing is the reason 2 people can walk into the same bank, borrow the same amount of money at the same interest rate on the same Tuesday, and end up in completely different lives 10 years later. One of them is crushed. The other one is buying a 5th property. The difference is not the debt. The difference is what they think debt actually is. Here is the mental switch. Every loan you have ever seen is just rented money. You borrow a pile of cash, you pay a fee for the time you hold it, you give it back. The fee is called interest. That is the rent. And just like renting a commercial kitchen to cater a wedding, the only question that matters is whether what you make from that kitchen is worth more than what you paid to rent it. If it is, you profit. If it is not, you just funded the landlord's vacation. That gap between what the borrowed money earns and what it costs you to borrow it has a name. It is called the spread. And everything you are about to see is just one person finding clever ways to keep that spread positive while everyone else pays it to someone else. 7 ways. Some you can run today. Some you cannot yet. I will be honest about which is which as we go, because this is not a course and I am not trying to sell you anything. Let us start. Way 1. The supplier float. Selling things you have not paid for. Yet the oldest trick in commerce is so embarrassingly simple that business schools dress it up in Latin to make it sound sophisticated. They call it trade credit. Normal people call it selling something before you have to pay for it. Here is how it works in practice. Say you want to sell something, anything. Phone cases, candles, protein powder, does not matter. The amateur version is that you use your own savings to buy the inventory, stack it in your garage, watch it gather dust, panic slightly, run a discount, and eventually make your money back 3 months later, minus the storage fee and your dignity. The smarter version is that you never pay for the inventory up front at all. Most suppliers, especially if you are ordering in volume, will hand you the product now and bill you in 30, 60, or 90 days. Net 30. Net 60. You get the goods, you sell them, you collect the money from customers, and then you pay the supplier with their own customers' money. Your cash never left your account. You controlled an entire inventory using someone else's float. Run the math on it. If your own money in the deal is 0 and you still made a profit, what is your return on your own invested cash? Divide the profit by 0. That answer is technically undefined. Economically, it is the best deal possible. You do not need to import anything from overseas for this to work. A 0% intro credit card that floats your inventory between purchase and sale. A customer deposit that pays for the job before you buy the materials. A 30-day payment term from your vendor. Same mechanism, different scale. And it is available to almost anyone who sells anything. Way 2. The house that pays you back. Twice. Most people think real estate makes you money the obvious way. You buy a house, it goes up in value, you sell it for more than you paid. Simple. Also somewhat slow and fully taxable. Rich real estate investors are not doing that. They are running a different play entirely. It is called BRRRR. Buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. And it sounds like a noise you make standing outside in January, but the math is actually extraordinary. Here is a real version of it. You find a run-down property for $300,000. Nobody wants it because the previous owner thought avocado green tile was a timeless design choice. You put 20% down. That is 60,000 of your own money. You borrow the other 240,000 from the bank. You spend 40,000 renovating it. At this point, you have $100,000 of your own cash sitting inside this house. Now, the house looks like an actual place humans want to live. The market value climbs to 450,000. You go back to the bank and refinance at 80% of the new value. 80% of 450,000 is 360,000. You pay off your original 240,000 mortgage and walk away with 120,000 in cash. You put in 100,000. You took out 120,000. Your own money is now fully out of the deal, plus 20,000 extra. And you still own a $450,000 property with tenants paying rent that covers the new mortgage. Your return on your own money invested? Again, you are dividing by close to zero, which is what mathematicians call embarrassingly good. The catch, because there is always a catch, is that your new loan is larger. Your monthly payment is higher. The entire strategy only works if the rent covers that payment with enough left over to matter. Finding a property that actually cash flows after all of it is the hard part. It is also the part that separates the people who actually do this from the people who watch YouTube videos about it, which include the vast majority of people who have watched any YouTube video about it. This one is reachable, not billionaire territory. Normal people with patience and a decent credit score do this regularly. Way 3. Borrowing against thin air, the stock collateral trick. Here is something strange. You can own $1 million in stock and never touch a dollar of it, never sell a single share, and still go live on that money, completely legally, while paying a fraction of the tax a regular person would pay. Here is how. You walk into a brokerage with your portfolio and say, "I would like a loan using these as collateral." They say yes, because the rich always get yes first and interest rates second. They hand you cash worth roughly 50 to 95% of your portfolio value, depending on what you hold. You go live your life. Your investments keep growing. You pay a relatively modest interest rate on the loan. And you never triggered a single taxable event because you never sold anything. Compare that to the alternative. If you sell your stock, you owe capital gains tax. Long-term rates run up to 23.8% when you include the investment income surtax. So, if your portfolio earned $1 million in growth, selling it costs you $238,000 immediately. Borrowing against it costs you maybe 6% per year. If your assets are growing at 7% and the loan costs 6%, you still have a positive spread. You are keeping the difference and paying almost no tax on any of it. The twist that makes this properly outrageous comes at the end of life. When you pass away, your heirs inherit your assets at what is called a stepped-up basis. In plain English, the decades of gains you spent a lifetime never paying tax on simply disappear. The slate resets at current market value. Your kids inherit the stock. The loan gets settled from the estate. The gains evaporate. The IRS does not see a cent of them, ever. This is the buy, borrow, die strategy. Those 3 words do an enormous amount of heavy lifting. I will be direct. This is not available to you today. You need a substantial pile of appreciated assets before a bank writes you this line of credit. But the small version of this exact logic is coming, and it is one you can actually run. Stay with me. Way 4. The margin account. Same engine, higher risk. The securities-backed loan from the previous section has a more accessible and considerably more dangerous cousin. It is called a margin account, and most brokerage platforms will let you open one in about 40 seconds, which is honestly too easy given what it can do. Here is the basic idea. Your broker lends you additional money to invest, using your existing portfolio as collateral. If you have $50,000 in stock, They might let you borrow another $50,000 to invest more. Now you are controlling $100,000 with $50,000 of your own money. If the market goes up 10%, you made $10,000 on an investment of $50,000. That is a 20% return. Leverage amplified you. Here is the part they do not show in the commercials. If the market drops and your collateral loses value, you get a margin call. That means the broker calls you and says top up your account immediately, or we start selling your assets to cover the loan, at market price. Right now, regardless of whether it is a terrible time to sell, which it usually is because things tend to fall right before they recover, meaning you can get wiped out right before the bounce. There is also short selling, which is borrowing stock you do not own, selling it immediately hoping the price falls, and buying it back cheaper. The upside is capped because a stock can only fall to zero. The downside is theoretically unlimited because there is no ceiling on how high a price can go, meaning if you are wrong, you owe more the longer you wait. Short selling exists in this video purely so you know what it is and can stay away from it. The same math that makes leverage wonderful in one direction makes it catastrophic in the other. Way 5. 0% is a number that rich people love. Here is your entry point. This one you can actually run this week. Credit card companies, in a move that seems financially insane until you understand their model, will regularly offer you 0% interest for 18 to 24 months on balance transfers. There is usually a transfer fee of 3 to 5% upfront. That is it. That is the only cost. Now, run the spread equation on it. You are renting money for 3 to 5% total for nearly 2 years. If what you do with that money clears 3% over 2 years, which is a bar so low it is practically underground, you kept the difference. The most boring version of this, and also the most reliably profitable version, is this. You have a balance sitting on a card charging you 24% interest. You move it to a 0% card and pay a 3% fee to do it. You just converted a 24% yearly cost into a 3% one-time cost. You did not earn anything. You erased a loss. The spread on that is enormous. That is a guaranteed return that most actual investments cannot match, and you can set it up on a laptop in your pajamas tonight. The importer selling a container of goods with a supplier float, and you moving debt from a 24% card to a 0%. One are doing the exact same thing. Borrow cheap, deploy it somewhere, it earns more. Keep the gap. The only difference is the number of zeros. Way 6. Business lines of credit, playing with the bank's chips. If you run any kind of business, even a side business, even a very small side business, you may qualify for something better than a personal loan. It is called a business line of credit, and it works like a credit card that actually behaves itself. You get access to a pool of money. You only pay interest on what you draw. You use it when you need it. You pay it back. It resets. The spread game here is obvious. You borrow at 7% to buy equipment that generates 12% return on investment. You borrow to fund a marketing campaign that earns more than it costs. You borrow to float payroll across a slow month and pay it back when revenue catches up. The thing that makes this accessible when it is actually set up correctly is that the business qualifies for the credit, not just you personally. A business with 12 months of revenue and a legitimate bank account has access to capital that a salaried employee trying to borrow the same amount personally does not. This is one reason why wealthy people often structure even small ventures as separate entities. It is not tax evasion. It is just speaking the bank's language. Way 7. Your credit score is secretly a wealth multiplier. Every single mechanism in this video becomes dramatically more or less profitable based on one number that most people have not checked since the last time they applied for a car. Your credit score controls the interest rate you pay on every dollar you ever borrow for the rest of your life. And the difference between a mediocre score and an excellent one can be 2 to 4 percentage points on any given loan. That does not sound dramatic until you run it across a 30-year mortgage or a business line of credit you carry for a decade. The national average score is around 715. The people getting the best rates are typically above 750. The difference in total interest paid across a lifetime of borrowing between those two bands can be 6 figures. Easily. And here is the part that makes it feel slightly absurd once you understand the spread equation. Every percentage point you knock off your borrowing cost goes directly into your spread. You do not have to earn more. You do not have to take more risk. You just have to be cheap to lend to. And unlike picking the right stock or finding the perfect property, improving your credit score is almost entirely within your own control. Pay on time. Keep balances low relative to limits. Do not open new accounts unnecessarily. That is most of it. The rich do not have access to a secret bank. They have access to cheaper money because they made themselves cheap to lend to. That is the whole secret. It was always the whole secret. The one line that pulls this together. 2 people, same bank, same loan, same interest rate, same Tuesday. One of them asks how fast they can pay it off. The other one asks what the spread is and how many dollars they can control with it. Same loan, same rate. Completely different question, and that question is worth more than the loan itself. Debt is rented money. The only question that has ever mattered is whether what you do with it earns more than the rent. Get that one inequality pointing in the right direction, and debt stops being the thing that owns you and becomes the thing you own. You now have all 7 mechanisms. 1 or 2 of them you can start on today. The others you will grow into. But you cannot grow into something you do not understand. And now you understand it. The math was never the hard part. The question was, now you know which one to ask.